I've talked to his father, but now we get to talk to the young man that's a senator. Hello, Rand. How are you?
Good morning, Dan. Thanks for having me.
Nice to be with you. By the way, how is your father? I haven't talked to him for a couple of years.
He's doing great. He'll be 86 this year. He gets up and walks 2 or 3 miles every day, still does an interview program 5 days a week, and continues to read books every day. He's doing great. Got
it. Now, you're via Pittsburgh, Texas, and now Kentucky. How did that trip go?
Well, the interesting thing is I have a connection to Youngstown, too.
Oh.
Part of my family came to Youngstown after the American Revolution, so we have Roses, Duncans, and Creeds that were all from Youngstown. I used to visit my great-grandmother there in Boardman.
Oh, so you know the lay of the land here pretty good. And 3 books, is that what you have now? Tea Party Goes to Washington, Taking a Stand, and Government Bullies. Are those your books?
Yes, and we also have the latest book my wife and I did called The Case Against Socialism.
Yeah. You're one of the more injured senators that we have had. I didn't know it was a contact sport when you go to Washington, but how are you personally after that terrible accident you had in your the assault in your backyard?
Well, fortunately, the justice system finally worked, and he went to jail. I had 6 ribs broken. I suffered for probably a year and a half, had part of my lung removed, and all really from a cowardly attack from behind where I didn't see the assailant coming. It was a tough time. Nobody sort of expects that. But we have political violence, across our country, and it's sort of ironic. The left claims to sort of love thy neighbor, except for the left seems to be willing to attack the right whenever they're unaware.
And then when you're coming out of the campaign rally in Washington, after reading the accounts of that was very dicey, wasn't it, as to whether or not you and your wife were going to survive?
Yeah, my wife and I didn't think we would survive, even with the police there. I think we were lucky to get out of there alive. This was the mob mentality. These are the kind of folks that would stomp you, hit you with a brick, I think not leave you alone until they completely killed you. We had 3 policemen there. Unfortunately, they did defend us. And I've become stronger and stronger in my belief that policemen need to be defended and honored in our community. And we have so many folks on the other side now that want to defund the police and want to get rid of jails and get rid of bail. And I think that's a crazy notion. It's one of the reasons, I support Mike Gibbons for the U.S. Senate is that I think Mike Gibbons will do a great job. He's been a businessman, arose from a poor working class neighborhood in Cleveland and made a big success of himself. But we need more businessmen like Mike Gibbons because we have so many people that have just done nothing other than run for office and have had no life experiences and never run a business. So I think Mike will be a good U.S. Senator. Yeah, well, Mike will be at the Mahoning County GOP headquarters tonight if you want to go out. It's a free event at 5 o'clock this afternoon. I'm going to be out there, and we're going to try to get you on the phone line at that same time. Is that still going to work for you? We'll see. I'm on a plane in a couple hours. I've got an event here in Kentucky this morning, and then I'll be on a plane midday and then in Washington about that time, and I'm hoping to be. We'll see if it works. Okay. All right. Well, we'll be there to help Mr. Gibbons. We got a lot of great candidates in this race. Why Mike? I've had Mike on a couple of times, but what's your thoughts? I don't have anything bad to say about the other candidates, but I did meet Mike when he ran for Senate the first time against Sherrod Brown, and I was, captivated by this is a person who's not just part of any machine, not just part of a party apparatus, won't be beholden to party leaders, will speak his mind, but also brings the experience of several decades in the business community and has seen how it works. And frankly, other than a couple of people in the Senate, many of them have just been politicians their whole lives. So I think having somebody outside of politics is good. But I also get frustrated in Washington because we got a bunch of weak-kneed Republicans, too. Everybody said, Republicans have promised to get rid of Obamacare, and we all did. Then they got up there and they decided they wanted to keep it. Yep. 7 Republicans, you remember McCain, Alaska Senator, Maine Senator, they all voted to keep it ultimately. And I think that, we need Republicans that will keep their word. And I think Mike Gibbons has the backbone not to be afraid of anybody and not to back down and to vote the way he believes. What's Gibbons' philosophy? Is it like you, smaller government and, more of a libertarian viewpoint? Yeah, and you can use the word libertarian, but I think also constitutional conservative is a good way to approach it. It's the Constitution is very libertarian. It's very much a leave me alone. It's very much a hands-off, that the federal government only has a few enumerated powers, and they're not supposed to do much else. Over the last 70 or 100 years, we've let the federal government do a lot. A lot of this came from the Supreme Court starting in the Depression, but we've let the federal government do things they never intended to do. Most of that power is supposed to be policing power and things like that is supposed to be at the state and local level, and we somehow let that creep into the federal government. But as a consequence, they do everything, and as a consequence, we have a $30 trillion debt right now, and the inflation everybody sees around us, people need to make no mistake. This is from the debt. The Federal Reserve finances the debt, but that's how we get inflation, and it's around us because we spend money we don't have. But look, half the Republicans up there continue to support it. All the Democrats vote for the deficit spending, but about half the Republicans do. So I've gotten involved with primaries trying to pick who I think will be the most hardcore at holding the line on spending. And I think Mike Gibbons is there.
All right. This is Mike Gibbons guy here, and Mike will be out there at 5 o'clock this afternoon. So if you get a chance, and told Tom I'd come out and help out, and we'll try to get you on the phone line if that works. I remember, something really had an impact on me. One day you were doing they just passed a bill, and they said, here, you got to go read it now, you got to vote on it. And you said, here, I have 400 pages I need to go vote on, and how can I possibly read 4 pages in a couple of hours and know anything about it? Have you gotten anywhere into people actually knowing what's in these bills?
I have several pieces of legislation that would help to fix it. I have a Read the Bills Act. I know that sounds really crazy and radical, but what I would do is have a waiting period, because I don't think you can trust politicians. If you ask them, did you read it? They go like, oh, yeah, I read it.
Yeah.
What you have to have is a waiting period, some way to keep them honest. I'd wait, 1 day for every 20 pages. And so, if it's 200 pages, 10 days, 2,000 pages, 20, 100 days. And so I think that that would give us pause. We'd get shorter bills. We'd get simpler bills. But also, if they're going to pass like a 3,000 page bill, shouldn't we have a month or two to look at it? This is why a year later, people are going, hey, I understand now it's a federal crime and you can go to jail for 20 years if you don't put the calorie count up at your Pizza Hut next to each pizza. And it's like, wow, how did that get in there? Well, got it in the middle of the night by some crazy staffer who put it in and nobody read the bill. And so as a consequence, we have tens of thousands of federal crimes now that you can go to jail for that are simply regulatory crime. They're not like you hurt somebody. It's like you didn't know the Byzantine regulatory code, all hundreds of thousands of pages. You go afoul of this regulatory code, and guess what? They can put you in jail. That's terrible. There should be almost no criminal penalties for regulations. Fines maybe, but really most of this stuff should be handled at the state level and should be civil court, not criminal court.
Yeah, that's probably how these crazy things get in there, and we find out that, they're putting snails on treadmills and things like this and slip them in the middle of the night. How should we feel in your opinion, about the Ukrainian war?
I think it's hard not to have sympathy for people struggling under an invasion. There's no justification for Putin invading Ukraine. At the same time, I think that people in America, your leaders in America, and the people running for office need to realize that your first and your primary concern is defending the United States, the national security of the United States. So when Biden says, we're going to give them $33 billion on top of the $14 billion we gave them last week, on top of the $6 billion we gave them previously, that's more than Russia's entire military spending for a year. And we're going to just give it? We don't have it. It's going to have to be printed up. So, if you're happy with $4 gas, you're going to have $5 gas or $6 gas. If you're happy with the prices rising on meat and everything else at the grocery store, you can be for that. But I think we should first say what is in America's best interest. And I'm not against selling them arms, but by golly, they ought to pay for them. So my sympathies are with Ukraine, but I don't think we should bankrupt the United States in the process.
Right, I've been advocating for people like you on your side to go out and hold press conferences daily and talk about the awful thing that's going on the border with Alejandro Mayorkas, who basically is just trying to flood the zone. Do you think that would work? I know we got a couple of minutes here, but what's your short-term solution to the border?
I would send everybody back that comes in illegally. I would have a helicopter station every 5 miles, which would be a couple hundred helicopter stations. It probably costs in the millions, not the billions.
Yep.
I'd pour some concrete for a helicopter pad. I'd lift everybody off that comes across the river, and I'd take them right back. I'd have a remain in Mexico policy like Trump had. But then I would do also on the other side is I actually would expand legal immigration. I would do it based on unemployment. But if our country's doing well, we need workers in certain categories, I'd actually allow more people to come in legally, but I'd allow no one to come in illegally.
Yeah. Are you going to beat up Fauci this week or anything like that? Is that done?
Somehow they quit sending him. I don't know why he doesn't come to my committee.
I don't know either.
Anymore.
All right, I want to switch it back. You've done a great job here. I appreciate meeting you, and I hope you can join us this afternoon. But go ahead and make your best case for Mike again, because you told me you're supporting him, and we haven't had Mike on much, so the listeners want to know.
Yep. Mike Gibbons is a businessman. He's independent. He'll stand up to the Republican leadership when they're wrong. He'll vote to cut the spending. And the problem in Washington is this. No Democrats are for cutting spending. No Democrats care at all about the debt, but half the Republicans don't either. So what we need Ohio to do is send us a Republican who really does care about the debt, who cares about the spending. When I subpoena Fauci's records, I'm going to need Republicans on the committee who will support that, so we can go after and discover whether the virus came from China. When I try to cut off funding to China and cut off funding to the labs in China that do this research, we need someone like Mike Gibbons who will stand up. I think he's been an outsider. He's not just a politician. He's been working his whole life, been very successful, and I think that business acumen will help us in the Senate. So that's why I'm supporting Mike Gibbons.
And, Doctor, do you still practice a little ophthalmology?
I do a little pro bono surgery. I do it for charity. I've been to Haiti. I've been to Guatemala. I've helped finance some other trips around the world, and still do a little bit of pro bono surgery for people who don't have insurance in Kentucky and different places.
I got to tell you, you're one of our favorites here in Youngstown, Boardman. We broadcast from Boardman, and cool that you have actually been here.
Yep, I've been there. I celebrated my great-grandmother's 100th birthday in Youngstown. Now, it's been a few years, and I'll bet you we have some distant relatives, but they were Creed family name, Rose family name, and Duncan family name. If any of them are listening, you're probably related somehow.
Yeah. Well, listen, I hope to be able to talk to you in the future. I appreciate the time you've given us.